Let's go to Auckland's Mayor now, Phil Goff, who's been out west surveying the damage caused by yesterday. In fact, the weekend's flash flood, 65 millimetres of rain in just an hour in the suburb of Newland, Glendine around there. Mayor Goff, are you there?
Yeah, g'day, John. I'm just at one of the big apartment blocks at the moment. There's all the cars in the car park. Most of them, the water went right over the top. This is, it's not a flash block of flats. People generally on pretty low incomes, and the cost to those people is just enormous in terms of the damage to their vehicles, the loss of their possessions. We've just been in another house, a Tongan family, young family, 2 and 3 year old child. They were at church, they came home just in the clothes that they were wearing. They've lost everything.
And sorry, forgive me, but are they renting?
They're renting.
And they have no insurance?
No insurance, and equally I've been to some of the small businesses in Newland, people that are working really hard, but they're not, they don't have much freeboard in their income, and so often they're not insured, because, you know, that's one of the things that goes when you're struggling to meet the cost of living. But I suppose the positive thing is the response that we're getting. Civil defence, we've got 27 families that we've housed here. We're working with the Sallies to replace children's clothing, whiteware, the sort of stuff all the furniture that they've lost. Helping people with hot cards so that they can get to work when, they've lost their car in it. So there's bits and pieces that we can do at a human level, and the community is rallying around those folk, and that's, I suppose, the bright spot in what is otherwise a really sad situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lost so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone knows that the rainfall we saw over the weekend was just extraordinary, even by the standards of Auckland, where we all know we can get a lot of rain. But there have been places, Glendine, for example, where the flooding has occurred twice in 5 years, same drain, same properties flooded. At what stage does the council say we can do better at getting this water away from properties?
It's a good question. I'm at that very property now that flooded back in 2012. And what happened at that time was that the culvert had collapsed, and that had caused the blockage. We're still to find out. We should know in the next day or so what the cause of the blockage was. Sometimes it's because there's a grill across the culvert, and when you get a deluge, a water bomb, what it does is it washes everything from upstream,
Absolutely.
and then it clogs the grill. You've got to have the grill in place, because otherwise kids would get into the culvert and lives would be at risk. But, it's the same as the fences on the farm, basically. All of the stuff upstream in the creeks washes down, and you see, up to the sixth wire on the fence, you see the debris jammed against the fence, which in turn acts as a dam. And that's what's happened in a number of these places. So we've got to make an assessment. Is there an argument for improving the diameter of the culvert and redoing the entire culvert? Quite expensive, but it may be warranted. We'd have to work on engineering advice. Or do you simply accept that from time to time you're going to have these problems when you have that level of rainfall, happens across the country?
Absolutely. I wonder, though, if we accept that we need to tell the residents. I mean, the point you're making, and it's a good one, and it was an empathetic and decent point to make, is that these are people who can't afford to lose what they've lost. And these are people who are living in these communities because they are low-rent communities and they are low-income families. Don't we need to tell them that there is a disproportionate likelihood of flooding and loss when it rains heavily where they are?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I'm looking at this block of flats. There's a hell of a lot of them. Used to be a motel. Twice in 5 years.
Yeah.
We need to work out whether, if there is not an engineering solution to stopping these events happening periodically, whether you continue the consent to have the building in place.
Okay, so do we have to have an explicit process around this? I mean, I don't want to reflect. I don't want to sound cynical about the landlord here, but my overwhelming sense is that they are not going to be saying to prospective tenants, "Hey, look, there's a high flood risk here." Who's going to tell them?
Yeah, and people deserve to have that warning. And the truth is, even with that warning, because of those that are on the lowest incomes in our community, they're going to be forced to live in the places that are cheapest, and the places that are cheapest are often the places that are at most risk.
Yeah.
So there are some big questions there that I think we have to ask. If this place has suffered twice within 5 years to this degree of damage, do we say, look, this is no longer an appropriate place to have rented out to people? It is at risk. If we can't do anything to mitigate against that risk, do you continue to allow habitation of the block of flats? And that's a question that I think council officials are going to have to ask themselves.
Great. Okay, well, we look forward to the answer on that. Can we move from the micro to the macro? And that is the really big picture, and that's the stuff that Stephen Selwood from Infrastructure New Zealand was talking about, and Gemma Tolich-Allen, who is a wastewater biologist, saying, look, there is so much pressure now on what in parts of the city is really ageing infrastructure that serious money needs to be spent. Are you going to spend it as Mayor?
Well, the question is, you've got to have the money to spend, and our challenge in Auckland at a time when we're growing by 45,000 people a year is that we are constrained by a debt-to-revenue ratio that says that if we exceed 265% debt to revenue, we lose our credit rating, which is a high credit rating. That loses its access to credit, and it makes credit that much more expensive.
All of that's a fair point, but this is also a discussion of priorities, isn't it? I mean, for example, the Waterfront Stadium is being mooted at the moment. What do you spend your money on? And the problem is that below ground stuff doesn't get you votes. No one sees it. It's never going to, there's never going to be a pipe. There's never going to be a stormwater pipe with a plaque saying opened by Phil Goff on it. At what stage do you have to make a choice between the above ground stuff and the below ground stuff, which is now starting to hold the city hostage, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got to get your priorities right. We know that we've got to replace Eden Park in 15 years' time. $250 million need to be spent on it. We've got to keep the options open for what we might replace it with. But the absolute priority is the fundamental services. It's the roading in a city that's becoming more and more affected by congestion and, in fact, gridlock. It's the pressure on wastewater. I mean, that's not new. It's been around since 1913 with the failure to separate stormwater from wastewater. We're working on that. There's close to $1 billion being spent on that in the next couple of years that will largely resolve that problem. But it's the problem, of water supply too. This might have been an unprecedented event for water care, but it's a sad reflection in a first world city if you are at risk of having to put a boil water order out. Now, we're not at that point yet, and the savings that Aucklanders are making will hopefully prevent that from happening. But we're faced with a situation. We've got climate change. We've got an increase in the number of extreme events. People might say, well, it's only a 1 in 100 event, but we don't know that this isn't going to happen tomorrow. We've got the extra population, which puts more demand on your water supply, which cuts down the headroom that you've got for when your major water treatment station that treats 2/3 of the water in Auckland gets affected by siltation and it halves its capacity, then we're under pressure. So we're going to have to address that as a priority, because a decent, clean, safe water supply is your priority for a city. We as Aucklanders will not put up with a situation where that might be at risk. Now, there's a whole range of solutions I've been talking to Water Care about. Why are the dams becoming so silted? Well, partly it's because in the past Water Care let the land out around it for commercial forestry, and when you cut trees down, you make the land vulnerable to siltation. Now, Water Care made the decision, ironically, 6 weeks ago, that they would stop commercial logging and that they would replant an indigenous forestry. And if that decision had been made 20 years ago, we wouldn't have had the problem with the siltation that we had.
Mayor Phil Goff, look, there's so much to talk about here, and what we're going to do over the next few days is look at this in depth, and we are going to talk to Water Care about all of these matters, and we're also going to try and work out how much it is going to cost to get this under the ground infrastructure sorted. Thank you for your time tonight. We really appreciate it. Gosh, this is a big issue.